It was reported earlier this week that a revenue sharing model could be coming to college athletics here soon. What's the reaction to that, and how does it affect specifically Tennessee? That and more. It's your Thursday Locked On Vols.
You are Locked On Vols, your daily podcast on the Tennessee Volunteers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, everybody? Welcome into your Thursday edition of Locked On Vols. I am Eric Kane. So glad that you made Locked On Vols your first listen, your first watch here. Shout out everydayers. Couldn't do this show without you. Couldn't do it without our friends over at FanDuel, where you can make every moment more at FanDuel.com. $150. Win or lose your first time. You put in that promo code Locked On College. FanDuel.com/Locked On College to go ahead and get started today. Got a fun show coming up. We're going to hear some reaction from some prominent people in the Tennessee market on kind of the status of the NCAA right now, the changes coming, a potential revenue sharing model that could be coming to college athletics, what that means for specifically for Tennessee. Get into that here in a matter of moments. Fun exercise, couple two tree questions here from Matt Shelby. Really good questions that I wanted to bring on the show. That's coming up in segment 2. We're going to make our all-time favorite, all-time best Vol quarterback, taking some traits of former quarterbacks, and one podcast guest I would love to have, dead or alive. That's coming up in segment 2. And then we're going to get your baseball look ahead. Tennessee and Florida down in the swamp this weekend. Another big SEC series awaits for Tony Vitello and the boys. All that and more coming up here on today's edition of Locked On Vols. You can watch us, listen to us, follow us, subscribe to us, and download us anywhere you get your podcasts, and of course, Locked On Vols on the YouTube channel. So Pete Thamel and ESPN and some of his colleagues reported earlier this week that the NCAA is in serious discussions, deep discussions, about potentially settling one of the many court cases out there. This one's in California. And, antitrust case, and essentially bringing a revenue share model to NCAA athletics. What could that look like? What does that mean? Does that mean collective bargaining? How would that specifically affect each school from another? Those are questions a lot of us don't have the answers to. But at the Big Orange Caravan stop in Nashville on Tuesday evening, Tennessee Athletics Director Danny White was asked about that, about the NCAA, and you listen and watch this, you can kind of feel a little frustration a little bit here from Danny White. Give this a listen. Tennessee's athletic director from Tuesday's Big Orange Caravan stop in Nashville.
Yeah, I figured I may get that question. I was thinking about that on the way here today. I liken it to if I had a crack in my foundation at my house. I think it's unfortunate over the last couple decades just watching this thing play out. We've several times tried to put some spackle on the crack and maybe hope somebody else solves it in the future. And we got to stop doing that. And I hope that we really take a deep look and solve this thing with some real structural issues. We obviously have some legal issues in college sports. There are real solutions, and we need to sprint to them as quickly as possible. At Tennessee, we're always going to do right by student athletes, and there's ways to do right by student athletes and get this thing organized, because it's a little bit out of control right now, as we all realize.
Do you feel like the sprint is starting to really, there's more urgency than there's ever been?
I hope so. I think there's people in critical leadership positions in college sports that didn't act over the last couple decades, and I hope that they do now. They're complex issues. Obviously, we are one conference amongst many, but we certainly have probably the biggest voice, if not one of the just a couple biggest voices. But we need strong leadership right now across the country in college sports. We got to find a more stable environment that allows kids to experience what I think is really special. I talked about earlier the value of college sports. It's so valuable from a university's perspective, an alumni's perspective, but it is so valuable from a student-athlete experience perspective. These kids, we had our Rocky Top Royale last night. It's our celebration where we give awards to all of our student-athletes. We talk about graduation rates. We talk about how great they're doing in the classroom, their leadership with their teams, the experience they get on a campus in developing and making the most of themselves as a person, as a student, as an athlete. It's magical. It's really powerful. And if we don't get this thing organized, we could do some damage to what I think is a pretty special environment.
No, I mean, Danny White's saying all the right things. He's an athletic director for a Power 5 program, a predominant Power 5 program in NCAA athletics. And, talking pageantry and something special. And it is. I mean, I certainly did not have the experience at Tennessee like these athletes are. But I mean, going to college and if you're lucky enough to be a student athlete, I mean, it's an awesome experience. It's one that I'm forever blessed and thankful for, and it shaped me into who I am today. And so there's something there to the pageantry and everything. But I mean, it's a different world even from when I was in college, and with name, image, and likeness, and now potentially a revenue sharing model, and all these transfer portals and all that. And essentially, Danny Wash is saying, I mean, you sense his frustrations there, saying that there were some people in prominent leadership positions in the NCAA ranks the last couple of years that haven't really been doing their job, and he's like putting patchwork up there, just trying to plug a hole here instead of really fixing the entire problem. So he didn't dive, as I didn't think he would, too down deep into the whole, what it would look like revenue share. But on the VolQuest podcast here on a Thursday, here's a clip of a specific question that my boss and the guy that you guys know for sure, Brent Hubbs, this is how he answered it in terms of if a revenue share were to come to college athletics, would that outlaw name, image, and likeness? The answer is no. I knew that, but he explains why that's a no, and then a little bit on what a revenue share might look like and what would need to happen in order for it to be actually a thing. Here's Brent Hubbs from Thursday's episode of the VolQuest Mailbag Podcast.
To me, when you do a revenue share without the student athlete being an employee of the college, all you're doing is giving revenue share. All it's doing is giving student athletes more money. Now, when you do revenue share with the university, they're going to have to spread it out over all sports. Okay. And you're going to have Title IX issues in there, and all the things you're going to have to answer to that. You can't just say, hey, we're going to give $20 million in rev share to football. You're going to have to do it across every deal. But no, under that rev share model, NIL doesn't go away. I think the question with this is that there's enough people out there believe the student athlete should be and will become employees, which means you're going to have a collective bargaining agreement and all those things. The challenge is going to be, that's great. Okay. That's what people see as Danny White said at the Big Orange Caravan, to stop putting spackle on the cracks, to actually fix the problem, and not just sort of patchwork it. The problem with that is, and nobody can answer this question for me when I ask it, who is going to organize the player side of things for a collective bargaining agreement? Who's going to be the union reps? Who's going to are you going to go get a couple of retired NFL guys that are going to do that? Do the student athletes understand that through a collective bargaining agreement, they're going to have to give money to their collective bargaining agreement for dues, to unionize, to have leaders? I mean, like, this is a big thing. And who's going to get all of the student athletes around the country to understand what this truly entails? I think you can get there. I just don't think you get there this summer. I think it's going to take a much longer time to get that organized and get that going, to get to that point. I'm not sure everybody thinks this rev share plan that's thrown out there just to avoid a lawsuit settlement is any kind of real fix to whatever. Because again, everything I've said also mentions the word Congress being involved. They're not going to settle anything for you. That's just good. You're not going anywhere down that road. So we'll see where Greg Sankey and the Big Ten commissioner are as they try to lead this and what it looks like. I don't think Greg Sankey's ever been a fan of NIL. I don't know that he's ever gotten on board completely with NIL. So we'll see what it looks like in time. But to answer his question, no, it's not going to make collectives in NIL illegal.
So we'll have to unpack in that snippet there from the VolQuest Mailbag Podcast. You can check out the entire episode over at volquest.com today. Good stuff there from Brent Hubbs. If there's a revenue share, and I answered this on our show yesterday, if there's a revenue share model, I mean, that's not going to take the place of NIL, because again, NIL is specifically your name, image, and likeness. Revenue share is, top to bottom, the entire roster. But things you need to keep in mind if this becomes a thing and kind of, what it would almost kind of look like. It wouldn't just be football. I mean, it would have to be women's basketball. It'd have to be tennis. It'd have to be all the baseball, softball. It has to be all the sanctioned sports on campus. And so, yeah, because you don't want to run into Title IX issues like Brent said right there. But also, you're going to have to be employees, which means you're going to have to be a part of a CBA, which means you're going to have to pay dues. Who's going to run this? Is it going to be somebody like a former Tennessee athlete that went on and had a pro career that's got experience in this? Like Jalen Reeves-Maben would be like the ideal guy to come back and do this here at Tennessee. And maybe he plays for 4 more years and he retires, and that's when this thing becomes more relevant, and he comes back and runs this. I think it'll be quicker than 4 years, but it's certainly not going to be here before next year, before next football season. So it's not just football. We think in terms of football and the 20 million number that was thrown around over there. That's not just for football. That's spread out around all the athletes. But also, you got to keep in mind, football is what keeps the lights on for your entire university. So what percentage is the football team getting compared to the percentage of the women's tennis team? I don't know. I have no clue. I'm not smart enough to know that right now, but I'll tell you what, I'm going to ask questions. I'm going to learn. It's just, it's a process to where, sure, let's explore it. Sure, let's look into it. That can be a good thing, but it's not an easy fix. And the NCAA is just kind of thrusting this out there to save itself $4 billion because it doesn't want to lose another case in court with, again, no guardrails, because they weren't prepared for where we are as a society today. They weren't prepared for all this to happen. Just, again, spackle, patchwork. It's what the NCAA does best. So a lot to think about. Again, this isn't going to be done next week, next month, next football season, but maybe in the next year or two. It could be a thing, but what does it look like? We're in the beginning stages of this, obviously, in the revenue share model and what that can look like. But good stuff there from Brent Hubbs at VolQuest.com. All right, when we come back, boy, do I have some fun questions to get into that I kind of discuss. Great stuff. You don't want to miss it. All-time Vol quarterback based on traits from former quarterbacks, and a guest that I would love to have on the pod, dead or alive. That is coming up next. So we continue on here on a Thursday Locked On Vols. All right, guys. Pause. Timeout. I know what you're saying. Probably flag on the play. I got to tell you about Monopoly Go, though. It's just so much good stuff in the game right now that you have got to be made aware of. In Monopoly Go, you can team up with your friends for timed tournaments where you work together to build up each other's boards. The more you win together, the more awesome prizes you can unlock. And there's so much to get. Unique stickers you can trade, stickers you can trade with friends to complete big albums and prizes, cool new playing pieces to travel the boards with, hilarious emojis for taunting friends when you smash their buildings or even heist their vaults. Plus, Monopoly Go feels new and exciting every single day with constantly changing tournaments and challenges. A ton include your unique mini games like digging for treasure. Also, there's new timed events that help you win big, like massive multipliers for everything you win or rent frenzies. There's always something fun to discover in Monopoly Go. So get off the bench and go download it today. It's free on Google Play and the App Store. Game on with Monopoly Go, free in the App Store and in Google Play. All right, guys, welcome back in here to your Thursday edition of Locked On Vols, segment number 2, and we got a fun one to get into here today. A lot of you guys don't get your questions in time for the mailbag show. Again, I usually record sometime in the afternoon the day before, and some people just forget, and that's okay. I always encourage you to send in your questions, because if it's good enough, I'll make a segment out of it, or I'll hold it for the next week. And that's exactly what I'm doing right now with Matt Shelby. He said that, hey, I've been trying to get these questions into you for a couple of weeks now, and I keep forgetting. I know it's past Tuesday, but here they are, and they're really good questions. And you guys know it's May, and I'm hunting for content. So, but this is really good. So shout out Matt for sending in these questions. I think you guys are going to enjoy it. First one is, dead or alive, who would be your favorites, or who would be a Vols guest you would love to have on the show? They could be alive, they could be dead, but any Tennessee guest you would love to have on the show. I mean, that's a great question, because obviously I would like to take, a lot of people. But the first name that popped to my mind, and maybe it was because he started with the phrase dead or alive, may he rest in peace, but man, I'd love to have Johnny Majors on this show. I was around Johnny Majors a little bit towards the end. He would do radio spots with John and Jimmy and Sports Talk in the afternoon. And so, like, when I was first starting in radio, I was making absolutely no money, and I still never made money even 5 years into it. But I was engineering remotes outside of my producing jobs, and just trying to make money. And I was around Johnny for a couple of those times, and of course some other gatherings and stuff I was around Johnny Majors for. But that was kind of towards the end. I would love to have him on the show to talk about his playing days at Tennessee, how he should have won the Heisman, how the game changed so much from when he was a player and when he was starting coaching to when he was done coaching with a second stint at Pittsburgh after, leaving Tennessee, coming back, winning a national championship, leaving after winning a national championship, coming home to Tennessee, and then being here for, 15, 16 years, whatever it was. I'd like to talk about the end of his tenure here at Tennessee, because that's obviously a huge gray area in terms of what actually happened. Probably a combination of a lot of factors. I don't think, Majors helped himself out when he was talking about how he needed to get a raise across the state. I'm sure there was some backdoor politicking, on some's behalf, such as Philip Fulmer, and health issues obviously for Johnny Majors, because he had to take a leave of absence there in that 92 season, and that's when Fulmer did really, really well stepping in, played for Johnny, and a long time, or actually it was a long time assistant for Johnny Majors. But nonetheless, I would love just to pick Johnny Majors' brain about Tennessee and just the game of football and how it's evolved and all that. So Johnny Majors was probably the first person that jumped into my mind. Obviously, I would love to have Peyton Manning on the show. I mean, it's Peyton Manning. Peyton Manning, the Tennessee legend, Peyton Manning, the NFL legend and Hall of Famer, one of 3 Tennessee players of all time to be inducted in both the college and NFL Hall of Fames. What he's doing now with Omaha Productions, and he's literally everywhere. I would love to talk about a variety of topics with Peyton Manning. I think that would be just so very cool. So very cool. So Peyton Manning was number 2. And then lastly, again, I'd go back to Pat Summitt. If she were alive today still, I'd love to pick her brain about coming to Tennessee and taking a basketball program and just elevating it. And in the process, elevating the entire sport of women's basketball, not just in the college game, but women's sports altogether. All the Final Fours and the championships and everything. And I would just love to, and her principles as well. You play defense, you rebound. Okay. I would love to get the Pat Summitt stare to see what that experience is like. There's just so many. I like to think I know a lot, but in the grand scheme of things, I don't know anything, right? I think we can all kind of take that humble pie a little bit. I just want to ask questions to learn and to better myself for when I talk behind this microphone every single day. And I would learn so much from those 3. So if I had to pick one, I'll say Johnny Majors. But Johnny Majors, Peyton Manning, Pat Summitt, goodness gracious. Those are 3 that I would love to have on this show. You had a second question, 2 really good questions. Essentially, I don't have the question in front of me, but you said if you could take a trait from some of the greatest quarterbacks in Tennessee history and put it all together in one quarterback, kind of like create your own player, what would those traits be and from whom? So if I've got a create a player on NC Dubs or Madden, and I'm just sitting here, I'm saying, okay, well, I want that person's arm. I want that person's intelligence. I want that person's durability. I want that person's legs. Kind of how would it go? And I'm sure there are some traits that I even left off here, but I kind of started with the smarts between the ears. Peyton Manning for sure. Nobody was more studious in the game of football. Nobody prepared like Peyton Manning did when he played football. Peyton Manning's mind is who I'd want inside the helmet for sure. Arm strength, that's easy. Give me Joe Milton. Hello. Arm strength, Joe Milton for sure. He arguably has the strongest arm in the NFL now after being drafted in the 6th round by the New England Patriots. So arm strength, didn't say accuracy, strength, Joe Milton. Accuracy, and maybe this is recency bias, and that's fine. I'm a prisoner of the moment because I know there's been a lot of accurate quarterbacks in Tennessee's history. But give me Hendon Hooker in terms of accuracy. He was one of the more accurate passers in all of college football in 2021 and 2022. His completion percentage ranked top 3. He's one of the more accurate passers in all of Tennessee football history. He was phenomenal in that regard. And I didn't really know, already gave Peyton Manning's mind to that part, but I was trying to think of another sector I could say, the ability to process information at a fast pace, but that's kind of the mind as well. If I didn't have Peyton Manning there, I mean, Hendon Hooker was, gosh, he was so good in this offense because he could take information, check out of it, process it in a millisecond, and then make the right decision. But I would go accuracy, Hendon Hooker. Legs, escapability, ability to be a dual threat, not just dual threat, but again, escapability, make plays off platform that I think Nico's going to be so good with. Give me Josh Dobbs. Hendon Hooker could do that. Joe Milton didn't. Hendon Hooker could do that. But Josh Dobbs was a really, really good runner. They would design plays for Josh Dobbs, and Josh Dobbs would lead Tennessee in rushing a lot of the times, throughout those games. And that's saying something because at the time you had Jalen Hurd, even Alvin Kamara at points in time. So legs, Josh Dobbs. Clutch factor. I mean, is this even a question? He ain't got the nickname Iceman for no reason, ice in his veins. Give me Casey Clausen, one of the more underrated quarterbacks ever in the history of the program, in my opinion. Two-time winner in the swamp, Casey Clausen. Give me Casey Clausen. Last Tennessee quarterback to win in the swamp. Give me Casey Clausen. Clutch factor is real in sports, and especially in guys like, superstars like Kobe and so on and so forth. But at the quarterback position here at Tennessee, ain't nobody more clutch, isn't anybody is more clutch, let's be proper here, than Casey Clausen. And then I added this last one here, and there are certainly other more traits I could go in there and get nitpick and all that type of stuff, twitch and durability and all this type of stuff. But I added this here to kind of end this discussion. The demeanor, or AKA the swag, how you carry yourself. And albeit I wasn't around him when he was a quarterback here at Tennessee, I wasn't around him when he was a quarterback, in the NFL and parts and times with the New York Jets. No, I'm not talking about Eric Ainge because I've been around him a lot. I'm not talking about Eric Ainge here. Pat Ryan, analyst of Vol Radio Network, color commentator for the radio broadcast for the Vol Radio Network. Pat Ryan, I've been around him a lot here in this stage of my life and in my profession, and nobody has a better, more confident demeanor than Pat Ryan. Knows the game of football inside and out, wears his emotions on his sleeve. Type of guy that you walk in the room and say that, it's not, I'm not trying to say arrogant or cocky, but you walk in the room and say, I'm the best there is. Yeah. And that's what I want in a quarterback. I want that confidence. I want that leadership. I want to follow that leader, right? And that's Pat Ryan. So the demeanor, Pat Ryan, the clutch factor, the clutch gene of Casey Clausen, the legs of Josh Dobbs, the accuracy of Hendon Hooker, the arm strength of Joe Milton, and the smarts of Peyton Manning. What do you think about that? What would you change? A lot of quarterbacks I didn't even put on here. Heath Shuler, Bobby Scott, Eric Ainge, T. Martin, Tyler Bray was one that I thought about trying to find a spot for him in here. There's been a lot of quarterbacks, Condrich Holloway, a lot of great quarterbacks in Tennessee's history. But this is kind of how my creative player would be. What say you? Would love to hear who yours would be right here on Locked On Vols. Hey, when we come back, going to get you set for a big-time series, Tennessee and Florida, down in the swamp. A little baseball preview coming up next right here on Locked On Vols. All right, guys, Game Time is the app for procrastinators like you and me. It's the app where you can buy tickets to your next big event in the area, not just sporting events, okay? Not just concerts or whatever's happening over the Food City Center this weekend, bull riding, monster truck rallies, comedy shows. You can get tickets for anything on the Game Time app, but it's for those procrastinators like you and I. The closer you get to the event start time, the cheaper those tickets often get. Also, they're even selling tickets an hour after the event starts over on the Game Time app. And they have this thing called the lowest price guarantee where Game Time's going to credit you 110% of the difference if you find a cheaper ticket somewhere else in that same section that you found a ticket over on Game Time. You put in that promo code Locked On College, you're going to get $20 off your first purchase. And download Game Time app today, create an account, put in that promo code Locked On College for $20 off your first purchase. Again, create that account, redeem code Locked On College, LOCKED for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guarantee. We'll get your baseball look ahead when we return right here on a Thursday, Locked On Vols. All right, so second week in a row, it's been a Thursday through Saturday series, so kind of the weeks are kind of condensed for me, and a little bit if you follow Tennessee baseball, they've been a little condensed for you as well. Tennessee's coming off a series sweep of Missouri last weekend in SEC play. Had a hiccup on Tuesday, okay? Lost to Lipscomb in the midweek, and how rare is that midweek loss for Tennessee baseball under Tony Vitello? Well, I'll tell you. 1 second as I pull it up. I wrote about it after the game. Let's see here. The loss was the first midweek loss of the season for Tennessee. Under Tony Vitello, the program entered Tuesday with a 75-10 record during midweek play, 65-6 since the start of the 2019 campaign, 11-0 midweek games entering yesterday, 15-2 against in-state opponents in the past 5 seasons entering yesterday. So losing in the midweek, losing on Tuesdays or Wednesdays, not something that typically happens here at Tennessee under Tony Vitello, specifically since the 2019 season. But it's okay. It is baseball. It happens. Look around the country. I'm not saying Lipscomb's, the Brock's Bombers or anything here, but Lipscomb was a regional team a season ago. In fact, people were getting mad, internet mad last night, saying, "Oh, it's so embarrassing you're losing to Lipscomb." Lipscomb was in your regional last year at Clemson. It was Clemson, the 1, Tennessee, the 2, Charlotte, the 3, Lipscomb, the 4. In your regional. You didn't play them, but in your regional. Now, Lipscomb's not the same team, okay? They're 12-11 in ASUN play. They're a preseason pick number 1 to win the conference. They're not going to win the conference, at least not on pace to in the regular season, of course. They're like 15-28 or 15-27, something. They've taken a step back this year, but it's okay. It's baseball. Look around the country. Big powers, lose midweek games all the time. And your midweek philosophy on the mound, at least for Tennessee, is you get guys work. Loy started the game, pitched 2 innings. Marcus Phillips pitched 2 innings. Banky pitched an inning and a third. Matthew Dallas pitched an inning and a third. Nate Snead pitched an inning and 2/3. You get guys work. It's not your normal pitching plan going into the weekend, right? And so if this was a Friday or Saturday game, it could be a completely different story. But not good pitching the other night. Banky got roughed up second time in his 3 outings. His last 3 outings, he's gotten roughed up. That's not great. Marcus Phillips got roughed up, and that's not good. But it happens. You try to short week, but you got to close that chapter and move on. You got to hit the plane, go down to Florida, to the swamp, a late practice on a Wednesday night, and get ready to go for Thursday, Friday, and Saturday matchups in the swamp. So that's kind of what we're looking at here. About Tennessee. About Florida. Starting pitching has been atrocious this year. This is a really, really good baseball team last year. Obviously, nearly won a national championship. But you lost a whole lot of guys. But you have one superstar that remains in Jack Caglione. Jack Caglione has been the stopper on Sundays, a 10-0 record, okay? A 4.10 ERA. He's second on the team in 48 innings in the third. He's leading the team in strikeouts, I believe. He's been really good. In fact, in SEC play, when Jack Caglione pitches for Florida, they're 6-1. When Jack Caglione does not pitch for Florida in SEC play, the team is 3-11. He's been really, really good on the mound, where that's number 2. He's a two-way star, Shohei Ohtani type situation. That's his second part of his game. Control issues are still there. He walks a lot, but he's gotten a whole lot better. At the plate, he's phenomenal. He's second in the nation in home runs with 26, okay? Only trailing Georgia's Charlie Condon. He's hitting over 400 at 404. Leads the way with 53 ribbies, 50 runs scored, 69 hits, and 28 walks for the Florida Gators. And I believe he's only struck out 15 times on the season. 16 times on the season. He's been phenomenal. He's been really, really good. And Tennessee will have to be careful with how they want to choose and pitch to him. Nobody on base. Tennessee's got a couple run lead. Pitch to him. Tying run at second, 1 out. Let's unintentionally walk him, right? The old intentional, unintentional walk. But Jack Caglione's the guy that you got to look out for. But overall, Florida's taken a massive step back this year. Still so much talent on that roster. And it's going to be a battle because it always is with Tennessee and Florida. It's a rivalry series. It is going to be a battle. But Florida's taken a step back this year. Look at this, man. On the mound, Florida ranks last in the conference with a 6.21 ERA. Tied for 11th in hits allowed. Next to last in walks issued. This is from Nick Delatorre, who's covers Florida Gators for Florida baseball for Gators Online. A quote he sent me: Kevin O'Sullivan, the coach, preaches first pitch strike and first 2 out of 3 for strikes. It's a pillar of his program, so much so that teams typically jump on the fastball early in counts. This staff doesn't throw strikes, whether it's starters or the bullpen. They're giving up an average of 13.97 walks and hits per game. That quote tells you a lot. And for an offense that's been a little bit more quiet in terms of the home run the past 3 games, but is still one of the best offenses in the country, that's opportunity right there. Jump on them. And Tennessee needs to do that to a pitching staff for Florida that's not very good. They've moved around a lot of guys, opening day starters in the bullpen now. Caglianone's been the one constant on Sundays. Pierce Capella, who's missed really the last 2 years of injury, he's come back. He's made 3 straight starts on Fridays the last couple of weeks. He's still getting stretched out. He's been torched in his limited time, only 6 innings pitched. He'll get the start on Thursday. Brandon Neely, who's one of the better bullpen arms in the country, has been moved to the starting rotation for Florida because they're looking for answers. It's officially Capella for Thursday, Caglianone for Saturday, and TBA, to be announced on Friday for Florida. But I bet you that'll be Brandon Neely there getting the second start. For Tennessee, it'll be Stamos, Beam, and Seacrest as normal. You look at the offense for Florida, and like the pitching, it's down. The only good thing about... A couple of good things. Caglianone's good. Ty Evans, a guy I'll tell you about here in a moment, he's pretty good. And the home run hitting. Florida hits home runs. That's really about all they do super, super well outside of those other 2 players. 92 home runs on the season. That's 3rd in the SEC behind Georgia and, of course, Tennessee. 9th in the SEC in average at 271. 13th in OBP. 10th in runs scored. 9th in RBI. 3rd in strikeouts at the plate. They don't run particularly well. Neither does Tennessee. But the offense has been a letdown as well. Mitch Caglianone and everything that he's done, he's phenomenal. He hits second in the order. He DHs, plays first base, and pitches. But when he's removed from the game at pitcher, he will stay in the game and DH, and that's kind of the Shohei Ohtani rule, right? Ty Evans, the only other guy in the lineup that hits over 300 outside of Jack Caglianone, who's hitting 404. Ty Evans hits 335 on the year. He's got 11 home runs, 37 RBI, 42 runs scored. He and a lot of the other ones, though, do strike out a lot. So of the 9 players who have garnered the most at-bats for Florida so far this year, 6 of them have registered at least 35 strikeouts. 4 of them have struck out 50-plus times on the season. Whew! That is an awful, awful lot. So, again, it's a lot of talent. The wins haven't translated this year for Kevin O'Sullivan's team. But it's going to be a dogfight, as it always is. It is Tennessee. It is at Florida. Tennessee is going for its 7th straight SEC series win. Okay? It's trying to keep the good times rolling, right? And trying not to give Florida any life, who at 9-12 in SEC play and 9 regular season games to go in SEC play, or 9 conference games left to go in SEC play. They're 5 wins away from locking up a regional spot. Don't give Florida any life. Don't give Florida any life. And that's what Tennessee's trying to do this weekend. I'll be down in the swamp. And if you're members of VolQuest.com, you can read my work over there all weekend long. And, of course, check it out on Twitter as well. And we'll talk about it next week right here on the show, too. All right, that is going to do it here for this edition of Locked On Vols. Can't thank you enough for joining us here on a Thursday. We'll be back on a Friday talking a little bit more about next year's Tennessee football team and how it can relate to the NFL draft with James Pierce and maybe some others. But, of course, it's all Tennessee-centered when talking about the NFL draft and James Pierce. But appreciate you guys for being here as always. Can't thank you enough. We'll do it again tomorrow, all right? This is Locked On Vols.